really want any of these cards. It does cost 0. I think the work right there is fine. Rampage? Rampage True Grit. Kind of a combo. Also just take Pommel Strike. Pommel Strike, typically a good card. I think Rampage is better against Hexaghost. And I think that's what I care about right now. It's a weird thing to care about right now. There are other things that feel more relevant to care about. I take Pommel Strike because I have Metamorphosis, I guess. I want the Juggernaut. How does this upgrade to? Oh my god. The upgrade makes it worse! My bad. You have made 43 rules in Bomba so far, and the machine has used them to solve over 400 Minesweeper grids. Cool. More free cards better than less free cards. But are they free? Or have we just simply failed to appreciate their cost? This floor beat me up a bit. Zephyr has used litter box, and now he requires acknowledgement. Good job! Stop using the litter box. Well done. Oh, what a good dog. A good cat. Yeah. Alright. I'm sure he's good now. Thanks for the year of thank. Zambonies, thanks for the $7 donation to support Free to Love. Hope I can do. I might want that Fiend Fire later. I might not be able to do this. I might just die here. I'm very tired. If I die, I die. I don't think I die on this floor, but I think I will perhaps die on the next floor. Not getting the free attacks in my first draw pile seemed bad. I would like to be above like 32 health at the end of this floor. I don't know if that's happening. With a good relic, and then I get another chest. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Potatoso. Tiffany! Hello!
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm well. Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, please do.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, pronouns she, her. I have a really clocky voice. It's fine. I'm of the Alice Caldwell Kelly School of Voice Training, which is that I don't wanna. I feel like I lied on my resume to get here, except there was no resume or qualifications. I just signed up. So here I am. I'm glad you got some normal girl representation.
Absolutely. You said that you had positive things to share from the year and that you would talk a lot about Baldur's Gate 3. That was your resume.
It's true.
That's a compelling resume to me.
Yeah, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 was a pretty big part of my year, and it was a very positive thing.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a bit about you and what gaming is like for you, what you do online, these sorts of things.
Okay. So I'm about as queer as they come. I am trans, ace, panromantic, and polyamorous. I have been gaming longer than I can remember. My dad has told me stories about being like a 1-year-old baby, like butt naked, playing MS Paint, standing up on his computer chair, barely able to reach the keyboard. Played Doom when I was like 4. Career gamer. And also I poop post online a lot.
A little poop posting. Never hurt anyone.
I've been a Twitch girl since like 2014. Yeah, I'm online a lot. I game a lot.
When I was a kid, one of my first memories, we went into the computer store, because they had entire stores for computers back then.
You remember?
And I was playing Captain Cosmic. It was probably like 3 or 4. And
Ooh, I don't know that one.
It's like a very early platformer.
Okay.
It was a pretty good game for its time. It was good enough to be...
Keen?
Yeah, earlier, but
Ooh.
Same sort of vibe.
Okay.
Even jankier than Commander Keen, though. I guess I don't actually... I don't know. I've seen Commander Keen speedruns, and that game is pretty janky. I've never seen Captain Cosmic speedrun. And the store employee came to, like, try to get the young child off the computer, basically. And my great aunt was in the store with me, and she told him to leave me alone and told him that I was born using a computer. This is my memory. Oh, Caster, thanks for the 3 months, and Outdoor Miner, thanks for the $25 donation to support Free to Love. What would you say has been most positive for you in gaming and online communities this year?
The single most positive thing is that I'm a speedrunner. You mentioned speedrunning. Speedrunning mentioned. And that's been a thing I've been doing off and on since I learned the hobby existed.
Sure.
And there is no place more friendly and welcoming than a niche speedrunning community. If you find a small little game with like 2 or 3 speedrunners and you show up and like, hey, I'm speedrunning this game too, they will welcome you like family. I started speedrunning a really niche little kind of deck builder but more narrative card game, Signs of the Sojourner.
Signs of the Sojourner.
Yeah, it has all the trappings of a roguelike deck builder, but instead of having battles, you're having conversations. Each card you play is a card you're playing to further the conversation, matching symbols. And some of the cards have text. And then after every conversation, you replace one of your 10 cards with one of the cards the person you're talking to played. So your dialect changes as you talk, and there's a whole lot of mechanics as metaphor, and it's a really nice little story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you grow up in the circles and triangles part of town, and then you start traveling to get items for your shop to help save your small town, and you go over to the squares and diamonds part of town, and then you come back home and you have trouble talking to your old friends because they're still on circles and triangles.
I have died on Ascension 7, by the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
When I first joined the stream, you were talking about your winning streak.
Yeah? It is over. GG Iron Lad.
I'm glad I could be there for the end of it. But I joined this niche speedrunning community, and they were just so hecking kind to me. They welcomed me with open arms. They answered all of my questions. I came up with a couple of things that I think could improve the route. So they called an all-hands meeting, got all the runners together in Discord, and we had a council, and we all like redid the route together and changed all of the route notes in their big route document. In order to make sure that everyone has the new updated route, the couple of suggestions Tiffany had. But I love cat girls. I'm neutral towards cat girls.
Is it a game where playing a new route requires learning a lot of different mechanical sort of tricks? Or is it more just memorizing the strategy?
Yeah, more memorizing the strategy. It's like... I also inadvertently solved a little routing puzzle that they had been stuck on for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I just showed up with the answer, which was a little fun little coincidence. But that's probably the single most positive thing, and that's not Baldur's Gate 3. I have a lot to say about Baldur's Gate 3.
Alright. I want to know what, like, prior to this year, I guess, what was your favorite game to speedrun?
Fallout 3.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I am the Fallout 3 girl. I've actually done a run of Fallout 3 80% in Summer Games Done Quick.
Cool.
I think 2016. Under my dead name.
Okay.
And I've done... It's one of the 4 Games Done Quick runs that I've done. 3.5.
Did you find that you wanted to move away from Fallout 3? My sister moved away from StarCraft when she transitioned, and I think for her it was hard to be in a community where she had being known visibly as someone else so much. So I guess I'm just curious.
I moved away from Fallout 3 before transitioning, but it has been hard to go back. I think a lot of the runners who currently play weren't the same like runners when I was doing it.
Sure.
I think they don't know who I am, and like the legacy I have as one of the like really old runners of this game. And I'll just like show up in the Discord sometimes and just like answer questions, and they're like, "Who's this girl? Does she even play?" Like, she's right, but I find routing to be the most fun part of speedruns. Solving that puzzle, figuring out how to do the thing quick. I am mostly responsible for the all quests route for Fallout 3. I did it pretty much from scratch, and then no run gets done alone, so the other runners have contributed over time to make it what it is now.
Sure.
But it was mostly me. And then the issue with really liking routing more than doing the runs is that, you know, once the route's done, you run out of things to do. So then I'll just wait for like people to start running the game again, and then maybe new categories or an opportunity to hop in. I'm like, oh, I know how I can improve things, and then I'll hop in, shave a few minutes off the route, then disappear again.
It's a tricky puzzle. I was talking to Casey yesterday about how he really likes prototyping games, which, like, if you really like prototyping games, what do you do after you have made the game prototype?
Yeah.
Interesting puzzle.
I guess the answer is just make another game.
Okay. So Baldur's Gate 3. Do you speedrun Baldur's Gate 3 as well?
I don't. So, have you seen the 80% speedrun for Baldur's Gate 3? No, I have
not. I still haven't seen the ending of Baldur's Gate 3, so I don't want to...
Well, it is 3 minutes long.
It involves a lot of jumping, is my understanding.
Yeah. You jump, you kill Shadowheart and put her in a crate, and then you do it again, and then you win. That's basically it.
Okay. Spoilers, jeez. Now I know how to win the game.
So that kind of run is really cool conceptually, and I love that they exist, but they're obviously not that fun to do.
And also not very interesting to actually do the routing for, right?
Right. And I was telling myself before the game came out, like, I will just, you know, finish playing the game, and then I'll start working on the route for a larger category, something like all quests or something. And I'm coming up on 600 hours, and I wouldn't say that I'm finished yet.
Finished with the game, you mean? Like, even without getting into the routing stuff after?
Yeah, like there's still entire sections of like Act 3 that I haven't seen yet. Like, you know, nearly 600 hours, and I'm still finding new things every time I play.
Cool.
Which is magical. Like, it's wild that is a thing that exists in games. And so I think eventually I might work on like an all quests route, but the issue is that the game's too nice, and it'll just mark quests as completed, pass or fail. So I'd have to come up with pass state for every quest, just decide like what counts as passed and failed, and then it gets a little hard to verify runs.
I have found myself confused by that because I will like do everything wrong and then I will go to my journal and it will say quest complete and I'll be like, really? Was that?
Yeah.
That was the completion, huh?
Yeah, it's a journal up, and sometimes you'll even be quests that you haven't even started. Like you'll get a prompt that's like, "Hey, point of no return. Are you sure?" You'll say yes. Say journal updated, and then a thing will be up there, and it's like, "Sorry, Big Booty Island's been destroyed. Quest complete." Like I never even went to Big Booty Island.
Unlucky.
Things like that'll happen.
Do you play Slay the Spire at all?
I have done, yeah.
Okay.
I have a few hours. Speed Frog taught me how to speedrun Slay the Spire.
Sure, that was what my next question was going to be.
And it very neat speedrun. The main category is 4 characters, since doing just one character is a little too short. And with this kind of game, you don't want it to be too short because then the resetting for perfect luck becomes too tiring.
Mm-hmm.
But the glitches in this game is really neat. You can do all kinds of wild things.
Some of the coding is trying to hang on.
Yeah, like you can... pretty much any time the game tries to give you a card, you can just choose to not have that card. Mm-hmm. So you can avoid all the curses from events. You can go to multiple nodes at once. Fight the Act 1 boss twice for extra power. And it's also hard. Some of the glitches I couldn't do because I just can't push buttons fast enough.
I've always wondered about that. Some of them are like, there's a certain frame window, and the window is not that large. So I've never actually tried to do them, but I have wondered how doable like, I would find it.
There's one where when you get the Astrolabe, and you can use it to just remove 3 cards, but going to the next act before getting the cards the Astrolabe tries to give you is so hard, and Speed Frog was so patient with me. I was trying to do it for like 30 minutes.
You use like multiple different input devices as well, right? Because sometimes it's easier to do something on one device than the other.
Yeah,
or maybe
that's right.
Only possible even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some things are only possible on controller because you need to input fast enough. You just have to just push A to auto-select a node instead of needing to click on it. And it's faster to select options with a controller. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you need to click on things.
So I have played up to perhaps the first third of Act 3. I don't know, because I don't know how long Act 3 is, and I don't want you to tell me.
But I think is the deepest thing in Act 3 that you've done? Like the furthest in thing?
So the reason that I stopped my first campaign is I was at the Keep, and the bureaucrat evil guy was doing a coronation or something, and instead of going through that questline properly, I ran afoul of a guard who started attacking me, so I attacked them back and aggroed the entire Keep, and just ended up killing the boss and all of his minions accidentally.
Well, that fight's really hard, so congratulations on winning.
Well, they all came out one at a time, and a lot of them couldn't fit through the doorway and stuff. It was just kind of a mess, and I was like,
really funny.
This is not the most fun thing. So I stopped and decided to give it a wait until it was patched a bit, because I don't think that I was meant to be aggroing them. I think that was a bug. And when honor mode came out, I decided to give it another go, and I am currently like level 4 or something. I'm not very deep in honor mode at all.
Okay.
Oh no, I hit level 5. I hit level 5 and then yeah. Yes, level 5 is a large power spike, so I guess I remember hitting it now that I think about it.
Were you a D&D player before Baldur's Gate?
Yes, I have played quite a lot of 5th edition, so all the rules are pretty straightforward. I'm actually using house rules to make honor mode a bit harder for myself because it's healing.
Yeah, I popped in one of your streams, I saw that.
Yeah. But also, like, I'm not a player who wants to win that much. I think a lot of people, if they, like, get to one of the big boss fights and then lose by 1 HP in honor mode, they'd be like, oh, I'm so frustrated or whatever. And for me, it would be like, wow, that was absolutely sweet and exactly what I want from my gaming experience, and now I'd like to start playing again. So.
Yeah. I think it's really nice how often Baldur's Gate lets you fail at things. And you mentioned just waiting for it to patch. How cool is it that they're patching it so often that like that's actually happening? That's not something we can take for granted with our games, especially AAA games.
Yeah, Larian's a good studio. I know one person who was at Larian for Baldur's Gate 3, and she says it was like a pretty good studio, and everything else I've seen has suggested it was.
Yeah, like I've bug reported a bunch of things in Baldur's Gate 3. This might surprise you to know I'm pretty good at finding bugs in games. And I've gotten an email back from a human being every time.
Huh. That's wild, because like that game is so popular. They must be getting duplicate bug reports, right?
Surely.
They're still responding to them. Like, even offering support for people to report a bug in a game like that is pretty intense with how many people are playing the game. I don't know. I wonder what the numbers are on how many reports they got. Maybe most people just don't bother to do it or don't even really consider that it's a thing they could report.
Yeah. I have found more bugs than I've reported. I've tried to report all the ones that I know a developer could fix once they were aware of it. Because, like, I don't want to just, like, add to the pile that, like, hey, Shadowheart kind of doesn't follow me sometimes, which, like, that seems like a lot of investigation time. But things like, yeah, when I use my Dwarven Thrower while a dwarf, some extra damage bonuses get added when they shouldn't be. That's something that they can fix.
Yeah.
I did find a bug that I'm pretty sure no one else has found. Which is that if you have the Polearm Master feat and you're wielding a quarterstaff, you walk into melee range of someone else holding a quarterstaff, the Polearm Master opportunity attack reaction prompt comes up, the one that's supposed to come up when someone enters your range. And if you click yes, I want to do that, then the enemy attacks you using your reaction.
You're basted.
I think that's a niche enough scenario that maybe no one else has been doing that.
It seems possible. I've done QA work before. It is a thankless task. It's also, yeah, it's pretty difficult to work out. It's not always obvious what things are knowable to the devs and what things are not. So, erring on the side of stuff that can pretty clearly be helped, I think, is good.
Yeah, back in 2020, I made 2 pieces of software that meet the minimum requirements to be called a game. So I am a game developer, and what I've learned is that, boy, that stuff is hard. No one's ever told you that you had to make the whole game. When you make a game, you need to make the whole thing. The
Does seem
first,
kind of ludicrous.
yeah, the first version of a 3-level platformer I sent out to a friend for testing. He messaged me back and said, "Hey, how do I close the game?" And I realized that I didn't put in an exit button, but that's a thing you need to do. Games don't come with those. And that's when I learned that game dev is hard.
Yeah. I remember a lot of the bugs that I was looking at were just like, well, nobody has tried doing this before. And so when you do it, it just doesn't work. Because why would it? And yeah. Then somebody has to actually make it work.
By the way, polyamory mentioned in Baldur's Gate 3. I think this is the first polyamory I have seen in a AAA game.
Mm-hmm.
So there is one companion who will do polyamory with, I think, there's like 2 other companions that are down. Which, accurate that it shouldn't be everyone, that it should only be some people. But it existing at all is pretty cool.
Do the other characters are okay with that?
Yeah, there's one character, one of the companions, Watson, who will offer a polyamorous relationship, and yeah, and depending on, and some of the companions, like Lae'zel, will say no, I don't want to share.
Wow, I thought Lae'zel would be into that.
Yeah, but other companions like Astarion are like, hell yes, give me the bear. And then you just have 2 romantic partners.
Oh boy. I am dating Shadowheart in my current playthrough, and it's just really killed her mystique as a character for me just immediately, because she's nice to me, and I just don't know what to do with it. Like, what do you even do with that?
The Lae'zel's my favorite, because she's still super extra when you're dating her, but she just becomes a poet, starts writing poetry about you.
Aww.
But she's still the same, like, super intense Lae'zel.
What a sweetheart.
Yeah, I think Karlach was specifically made in a laboratory to appeal to me personally, and Lae'zel was my favorite.
I'm sure. There must have been some sort of research done on, like, preferences of the potential audience, because it feels like every single one of those characters is made in a laboratory for someone to me.
Well, Larian tweeted out stats not too long ago, and the top 3 romantic partners were, I think, in order, Shadowheart, Karlach, Lae'zel. And that tweet made me realize that I was in an echo chamber on Twitter, because a lot of the people I was following were tweeting out that information with lesbian pride flags and stuff. It was like, yeah, Sapphics, go. And they seem to have all forgotten that straight men exist.
Uh-huh.
It was eye-opening for me.
It's funny.
There's also a trans character in Baldur's Gate 3. Only one as far as I know.
Huh. How does one know?
Well, she is hidden away in Act 3. Well, the first clue is that Abigail Thorne is the voice actress.
Sure.
We love Abigail Thorne. But she's an old friend of Shadowheart. And if you meet her, she's like, hey, me and Shadowheart, we're old friends. It's like, do you remember me, Shadowheart? And Shadowheart's like, no, I don't remember you. Char erased my memories. That's my whole thing. But do you remember the noble stock in the Underdark?
Yes.
Yeah. If you can feed it to Shadowheart.
Oh.
And it will recover some of her memories. And her specific memory is of her best friend back when she was a little Char baby, a tiefling boy. Then you meet this character, and they're a tiefling woman.
It's wild how much went into that game. There are so many situations where it's like, I'm about to do something, it doesn't seem like the obvious thing to do, and so I assume that it will just like break, or the game won't recognize it happened or something, and then instead you find out that there's another hour of content behind that one decision that you assumed nobody would ever make.
I mean, that's what makes games magical. It's like, so many things can happen in the game. And like, a lot of time things that the developers never intended. Like, because they are both story and software. You get emergent storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I may tell another story about Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing Dark Urge. I was being bad and naughty. And I got to Last Light In. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't be mean anymore. This place is too nice. It's literally a light in the darkness. I can't hurt these people. So I go in, and Tahira's like, blah blah, you're bad. And she was right, I was bad. And then the Marcus, the guy who tries to kidnap Isabel, he vouches for you if you destroyed the grove. He's like, oh, I know this person. We go way back. You can trust them. And then that's how you get in as a bad character. But you have a dialogue option there to say, hey, that guy's a true soul. Don't trust him. And you can just out him right there, and they kick him out. Which is very cool.
Mm-hmm.
But he summons a bunch of undead hands to attack you. It's like, ooh, that was mean. Zombies. He flies away. And the fight starts, and it's just like 8 zombie hands with only a couple hit points each. But all the Harpers are there too, and they're neutral. And Jaheira started casting Ice Storm to hit the hands on top of my party. Because we were neutral, and just ice storming the crap out of us. And I didn't fight back. I didn't get close to the bad people. I wanted Jaheira to like me, so I just drank all my best healing potions. She just kept ice storming, and I attacked the zombies, and then when the fight was over, she extended the benefit of the doubt. And because she spent that whole fight just attacking me, and I didn't retaliate, and I just allowed it to happen, I felt like I actually earned that benefit of the doubt. And like the moment just felt a lot more real.
Mm-hmm.
And then, a little bit later, there was a patch note saying that Jaheira will now treat neutral people in the combat as if they were allies, meaning she won't ice storm on top of your party anymore. And that made me a little sad.
Yeah.
Because that was just such a nice little bit of emergent storytelling.
My first playthrough of Baldur's Gate, I accidentally killed everyone in the Druid Grove by trying to do a quest for the kids.
Yep.
And doing it the wrong way.
I understand exactly what happened.
The number of things that happened that followed that I was not expecting, resulting eventually in my party's death. Because I didn't lose that fight. I lost somewhat later. Just completely blew my mind. It was, yeah. My favorite feeling in gaming probably is the feeling of losing and immediately wanting to start again.
Yeah. Gosh, Baldur's Gate 3 is such a cool game.
You like Magic the Gathering? Have you played with the Magic the Gathering cards?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so before speedrunning, a little bit of overlap, I was a Magic girl. In fact, I could draw a line from joining the Boy Scouts to learning to play Magic in the Boy Scouts to just every single person I know and everything I love today. Just from that divergent point of just learning Magic and just getting into that.
Magic is good at that sometimes.
Like, I've played a lot of Magic. I was a pro player. I have 1 pro point.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've moneyed 4 Grand Prix.
Where did you get your pro point from?
They don't remember when, but it was a Grand Prix that was Khans of Tarkir limited. I went undefeated in the sealed, the first day 1, and then I think I only won like twice in the boost and the following 2 booster drafts, and I got top 64, which was good for 1 pro point.
Okay.
But yeah, I played a lot of Magic.
I feel like the Commander community in Magic now has a bit of that same small speedrunning feel, although in a much larger overall community.
Yeah, Commander's become just such a mainstream thing. I feel like it's just replaced, like, kitchen table Magic. Like, people aren't buying booster packs and building 60-card decks anymore. People are making their cool Commander deck. Which I remember, like, when Sheldon Minery made Elder Dragon Highlander, and playing it, like, back before Commander existed, and, like, there was a Grand Prix in Pittsburgh. It was when the modern format first came out, and I think Wizards was like trying to increase the popularity of EDH, Elder Dragon Highlander, to start making Commander products. So they had, as just one of the features of the event, they had Matt Tabak and Sheldon Minery just there, and anyone could just walk up and play EDH with them. And I played EDH with the man himself, Sheldon Minery, rest in peace, and he mused about how people should play a Nathamancer more, which is a creature that does damage to a player equal to the number of non-basic lands. So he was a very mean player, which was great. he played with the goal of reducing his opponents to 0 life points. And I feel like that legacy hasn't really survived in Commander.
The legacy of being mean to your opponent?
The legacy of trying to defeat your opponents.
There is the competitive Elder Dragon Highlander community, and it does exist. I know people who do that.
I keep hearing about it.
Yeah, it's definitely not as big a deal. You can find streams of people playing competitive EDH though. Something that people will do on webcams.
I don't know if you've seen one of the setups for that in person. For like the feature matches at Magic tournaments, or especially something like the four-player Commander game, where they'll have these like this big like plastic frame over a table with like at least 4 cameras just suspended on them, pointing straight down, and it's such an elaborate setup to capture some cardboard.
Magic's big money. So one of my really fun things last year was I went to Loading Ready Run to do a pre-release for Magic. For the first time, I got invited. They try to have a different set of guests. Like nobody who has ever been there before gets invited back again. So I guess I was close enough to Magic the Gathering to get invited. And like, yeah, it was perhaps the highest production value show I've ever been on.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, I've played Magic the Gathering. I love card games so much. Every card game. Played them all. I haven't actually played all of them, but I've hit most of the big ones.
There are a lot of card games. Hard to play all of them. What's your favorite card game?
My favorite card game? I'm gonna say Yu-Gi-Oh!
Okay. I have not played Yu-Gi-Oh!
So Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like how people think Vintage is. The Vintage format in Magic the Gathering, people think it's like, you know, you like kill your opponent on the first turn and you're like throwing all these like free cards at each other in it. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Truly is a one-turn game. Each player gets one turn, then after that, the outcome of the game is decided. You know, the game doesn't always end after everyone's had their one turn, but it's over.
How are the mulliganing rules?
There are not.
Oh my gosh.
You get a... So...
How do the tournament brackets work?
So there's 2 quirks of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which is basically just everything's free, and you are just not allowed to draw cards. There are things that draw cards, but it's at most 1, or if it's 2, you have to put a lot of work in for it. So, and because there's no mulligans, it's you draw 5 cards from your 40-card deck, and then you have to win the game with those 5 cards, or you lose. And how it shakes out is, you know, people didn't like the parasitic design of energy in Magic the Gathering, where to play the energy deck, you need to just play all the energy cards. But that's how every Yu-Gi-Oh! Mechanic is. You'll get the Drytrons, and then Drytrons mean you have to fill your deck with these 20 Drytron cards, and then now you're the Drytrons deck. And, you know, or the Tier Elements stuff, you have to play all the magical girls, or your deck isn't a Tier Elements deck. And most Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, and because you can't draw cards, they'll instead search for cards. So you have these very consistent decks where you have all these different starters that can search for your next card, and get your whole combo out. And when you learn to play a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck, what you do is you go to the Master Duel Discord server, and then you find the deck that you want to play. You go to the pinned messages in that channel, and then you click on the Google Docs link and go to the spreadsheet where it has all the dozens of different combo lines for how to play your deck. and it's a wild game. And in tournaments, you'll do best of 3, and you have I think a 10-card side deck that you can change out some of your cards in between. Usually that's just things for if you're going first or if you're going second. There aren't that much in the way of silver bullets. Floodgates, which are like stacks things where it just says your opponent can't do a thing, but instead of like, you know, your opponent's spells cost 1 more, it's your opponent cannot play spells. They're very harsh, and they're so good that just playing a deck full of those floodgates is a mainline strategy. So they're not used as silver bullets, they're just bullets.
Yeah, it sounds like an interestingly balanced game.
It's really intense.
How much interaction is there?
So there's hand traps, which are cards that you can play from your hand to interact with the board.
Ah, you activated my trap card. I'm familiar with that part of the anime.
Right. Well, actual trap cards are pretty, like, mediocre. You need to play them, and then they're not active until the next turn. If you remember, we only have 1 turn. So we don't get to use those very much. So which is why Konami made hand traps. So we can interact with each other, and you have things like Ash Blossom that will just completely negate an effect that, like, searches the library or draws a card. That one's huge. And something else that'll just negate a monster effect. So you have all these. So you have a few negates to try to stop your opponent from doing their full combo. And then the other interaction is the board breakers, where you have monsters that, instead of needing to tribute your own monsters, you contribute your opponent's monsters. And that gets rid of their monsters very easily. You have kaijus that do that.
It strikes me that I was talking to Panacea about Hearthstone earlier, which is Panacea's favorite card game. And Panacea told me about a game which was a Druid control mirror, where a player played a card that generated random spells and had to discard their entire hand, and then came back to win afterwards. It strikes me that that wouldn't happen in Yu-Gi-Oh!
No.
An interesting contrast.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is Pistols at Dawn. You shoot once, and then someone's dead. There's some really interesting games that happen when both players brick on their combo, and they have to play honest Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they're just attacking with monsters in decks that are not meant for that.
True honest Yu-Gi-Oh! Like our grandparents used to play.
Yeah. I remember playing unsleeved, no mat, on the sidewalk Yu-Gi-Oh! That's where I started my card game journey. And
I just killed the transient with shivs, which is not something I do very often. Just an enjoyable slay the Spire moment in the background. We have killed transient rights. Yeah, whoops. My phone.
The Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck that's all about the cake princesses. That's like, oh, their name is so hard to pronounce. It's like Malafels or something. I think they're a trap card focused deck, which means they're bad. Sorry.
What would you say is the most realistic thing in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime?
Most realistic thing in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime? Ooh. That is a good question, because there's not a lot.
I figured, but I thought maybe we could find something.
Well, in the first arc of the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, they're all the way up to like fighting Pegasus and stuff. The rules are weird and different, which is that you can just play any monster and only one of your monsters gets to attack, which is not the case in Yu-Gi-Oh. There's no limits to how many monsters you can play, and also everyone can attack immediately. The very first turn, you can't attack, just only the player going first. You can attack every other turn. It's trivial to get 8,000 damage worth of monsters, which is why the games end instantly.
1,000 is a large number.
Yeah, that's how many hit points you have, and
That's how many hours I've played Slay the Spire for.
and sometimes there's things that have like attack values of like 1,250. So like they use most of that 8,000. You never see single digits. Actually, you do sometimes see single digits because there's things that like reduce your life total by like a third. Single digits do happen sometimes.
If something said raise or lower a digit on a card by 1, and a card said 37 on it, do you think you'd be allowed to make that number 47?
If it just said raise or lower a digit on a card,
Yeah.
probably you could make that 47.
Okay. This has absolutely no consequence. I was just...
Okay. Yeah, so they were playing weird rules in the first arc, and then in the second arc when they were in the battle city, and they were playing for the Egyptian god cards, Kaiba, who was running the tournament, instituted new rules, which is that they had to play the anime the same way you have to play the card game.
Is Kaiba the one who you tell that your grandfather's deck has no bad cards?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly who Kaiba is. And I think it's just very funny that at some point in the anime, they're like, okay, we're changing the rules. We have to play the same card game that we're selling to the kids.
Good for them. A little bit of integrity from a gaming company. Love to see that.
So, interesting thing about Pot of Greed. There was, not recently, it was like last year, but a no banned cards tournament of Yu-Gi-Oh! No limitations. Like, you still only play 3 copies of a card, but you can play any cards you want. The like 3 best decks in that tournament were also the 3 best decks just in regular Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh god.
So like Tyrelmints and 2 other proper nouns you wouldn't recognize were the best ones anyway. But also, most decks did not play Pot of Greed because there just wasn't room.
Pot of Greed costs 0 and draws 2 cards?
Yeah, they didn't have room for it. There's too many other cards that are better than that.
You're not allowed to go above 60?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not allowed to go above 60, but
Good
also
grief.
like you don't want to go above 40. You gotta get to your
Oh, it's
magical
only
girls.
40? Okay.
Yeah, it's 40 to 60.
I see.
Sometimes you do play 60 because of the card called the grass is greener on the other side, and it mills cards from your deck until you have the same number of cards in your opponent's deck. So then you do play 60, so you can like mill 20 cards off the top, and then
Sure, that
have
sounds like it would
20
instantly
free
kill them.
cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a painful choice, I think, is the card, where instead of drawing 2 cards, you search for 5 cards, your opponent puts 1 in your hand, and the other 5 go into your graveyard, and your graveyard is the same as your hand in Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's just draw 5.
What? Where do the cards go after you play them? How
Well,
can your
they're not
graveyard be your hand?
Well, it's not literally your hand, but you know, you search for 5 cards that do things in the graveyard. There's a lot of things that activate out of the graveyard.
I have to say, Tiffany, that I question some of the balancing decisions that I'm hearing about in this card game.
Are you ready for balancing decisions in a card game? There's no rotating format.
Okay.
Like standard in Magic.
Okay.
Every single card that exists, you can play. All of them. There's some that are banned. Some you're only allowed to play 2 copies. Some you're only allowed to play 1 copy. But they're all there. So, in order to keep the format fresh, so that you're not just seeing the same things over again, they just do power creep to make you play the new cards.
Of course they do.
Yeah, and then when we've had enough of that card, they release new cards that are even better.
So has the max HP available to players gone up to cover for the power creep?
It's always been 8,000.
Okay.
Which is weird, because the anime started with it at like 2,000, and then when they started moving to real rules, it was 4,000. Which I guess because they wanted to keep the anime battles short. It's just always been 8,000.
Who is Yu-Gi-Oh made by?
Konami.
Okay. Konami of the code.
Mhm. Yeah, it's power creep with effects, not bigger numbers. That is true. You get more cards that can just play themselves for free. Cards that search for other cards. My favorite deck is Drytrons, which has been power crept out. It was when I first started playing Master Duel when it came out. Drytrons was the best deck. That's a bunch of sentient motorcycles that search for each other and search for stuff to do ritual summons. Then you ritual summon a bunch of fairies, and then the fairies counterspell everything your opponent does.
Sounds sweet.
But unfortunately, my motorcycle fairies are not viable because Magical Girls took over. I think the Magical Girls all got banned out or restricted to like 1 copy because Magical Girls were a mistake. So now some other thing is the best now.
This seems to be how it goes in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh's wild. There was a little while where Normal Birds was a great like anti-meta deck.
Normal birds.
Yeah, you'd have a deck that was just regular little birds.
Like you just show up with your Wingspan expansion pack?
Yeah. They're regular birds, and they only normal summoned, and they let you normal summon more, and they made it so your opponents couldn't special summon, which is mainly what you do. The flavor of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also all over the place. They don't care about any kind of cohesive story or world or setting. Everything goes. So you have motorcycles, you have Gundams, you have magical girls, you have regular birds, you have Beaver Warrior, you have...
Beaver Warrior?
Yeah, Beaver Warrior is one of the original cards. It's a beaver, he has a sword, a shield, he's got armor and a helmet. He's terrible. But we love him.
This sounds very precious.
Yeah, there is a little like niche community where they try to win with Beaver Warrior. He's like the fun card.
Okay.
And they'll like play their Beaver Warrior and like suit him up with a whole bunch of enchantments and stuff to try to go the distance with their Beaver Warrior.
I'm upset that doesn't work.
It works sometimes. To make a point in the Drytrons community about, people like, oh, I don't have 3 copies of every single one of the ultra rare cards to build the deck. I'm like, don't worry. Like, you don't need everything. I made a minimalist Drytron's deck with the fewest good cards possible and filled the rest in with like 3 copies of Beaver Warrior, 1 of each Exodia piece, you know, a bunch of like vanilla monsters. I have a win at the highest rank where I summoned a Hungry Burger.
Is that like from a partnership with Burger King?
No, that's just also one of the regular cards. It's a ritual monster. Ritual monster, you play a ritual spell, tribute materials, usually from your hand or you're in play, that have a level equal to the monster you're trying to summon, and then you put your ritual monster into play. And it's supposed to be the ritual monster is supposed to be very powerful because of all the work it takes to summon them. But Hungry Burger is just a guy. He's smaller than Dark Magician. It's just a burger, and the ritual spell to summon is called like Demonic Hamburger Recipe or something like that. The reason I love Yu-Gi-Oh! Is when you're playing serious Yu-Gi-Oh! And you have your deck where all of your cards search for your other cards, and you have this spreadsheet of all the different combo lines. You get some, and you have to win with your 5-card opening hand. You get some weird games where you don't have like the 2 cards you need to full combo, but you have some extra hand traps, or you have your Hungry Burger or whatever, and you need to win anyway with these, and you come up with some really creative and weird lines too.
That makes sense.
Win. And I have a YouTube channel, which is literally all I did is upload different weird lines I had playing Drytron so that I could put it in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Discord. And that's all it is. It's just like an opening hand and what I did with it. And a bunch of other nerds went, "Ooh, that's really cool, Tiffany. I can't believe you summoned your Chaos Ruler using a Natasha and an Ash Blossom." And if anyone in chat was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, they would also be going, "Ooh, you did? That's very exciting." You know, it's like a Chan-Con. It's super cool. Chan-Con's a Mahjong thing. Mahjong is also a card.
Mahjong's taking off in the Seattle area.
Is it? That's fantastic.
Yeah, I do a monthly board game meetup, and there are always people hanging out playing Mahjong.
I don't remember who started it, but at Summer Games Done Quick 2016, someone showed up in the board games room with a few Mahjong sets, and they taught everyone who would listen how to play Mahjong.
Mm-hmm.
And then it took off because Mahjong is so cool. And the board game crew, all the people who go to the Games Done Quick to play board games, just loved Mahjong, and we've just become Mahjong players, just all of us.
Sweet.
And that legacy stuck.
I have seen people playing the online game too. I think there are like 2 or 3 different popular online platforms.
There's 2 big ones. It's Tenho, which is a very serious one. It uses martial arts ranks. So you have like, so if you're like and it's actually serious. So like if you're like an 8-dan, you are like a rock star. Okay. You know, you can go to Japan and say, "Yeah, I'm an 8-dan on Tenho," and they're like, "Woo, have some free ramen. Thanks for coming."
And then they have the waifu one.
Yeah, and then they have the waifu one with all the gacha stuff, Mahjong Soul. That one is way more popular. Everyone plays Mahjong Soul.
Casey has told me that the best actual interface for playing Mahjong. This was a while ago, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting him, but this is what I remember him saying. I remember him saying that the best actual interface for playing it was in Final Fantasy XIV.
I can believe
like
it.
You can just play it multiplayer in Final Fantasy XIV, and that's actually the best way to play it online.
Yeah, I played a lot on tabletop sim.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's I think the only decent way to play without a timer. But the reason a lot of people don't like Tenho isn't because they love the life. It's just Tenho is only in Japanese.
Yeah.
And most people don't want to learn Japanese or memorize UI elements.
Yes, my friend who got into Mahjong Soul got into it on the recommendation of a book like on how to play Mahjong, and the book starts with like, you need to be able to speak Japanese to play on this platform, and if you could speak Japanese, you wouldn't be reading this book, which is written in English.
Yeah, I know exactly what book you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick, but I will be back in a couple of minutes. I'm not gonna take a long break. You can hang out with chat.
I would love to hang out with chat.
Yeah.
Chat, I can answer your questions. I can answer questions about card games. If you have some non-weird questions about queer identities, I can answer those too. I'm open to answering some of those. Would you like to know if you like... I don't know what that is. Is Mayonnaise a card game? Mayonnaise is not a card game. I don't know what Padaroo is. Oh, an average Yu-Gi-Oh! Turn 1 points out. I love green tea. Okay. I special summon my Drytron Alpha, tributing Drytron Zeta, search for Cyber Angel Benton. I activate Drytron Drytron Zeta's ability from the graveyard, tributing Cyber Angel Benton, searching for Drytron Meteosis, and use Cyber Angel Benton's ability to search for another Cyber Angel Benton. I Z's summon Drytron Mubeta from my extra deck using my 2 Drytrons in play as material. Put Drytron Gamma in my graveyard. Summon Drytron Gamma from my graveyard, tributing the Cyber Angel Benton. I had to ritual summon. First I used Meteos. It has been a while since I've done this. I use Drytron Meteosis to ritual summon Cyber Angel Benton using the Drytron Zeta from as material, the one attached to the Mubeta. Okay, now I get my Gamma, tribute the other Benton in my hand, get Diviner of the Herald. Then I'm going to use Drytron Meteosis' ability from the graveyard, reducing the attack points of my Drytron Zeta by 1,000 to return it to my hand. Now I can ritual summon my... I forgot to search for Diviner of the Herald. Oh gosh, I messed up the whole turn. I don't have any fairies in my hand. I'm not going to be able to counterspell anything. I think I lost this one. It's things like that. No, I was supposed to get Diviner of Herald and normal summon that, send Herald of Arclight from extra deck to graveyard, which lets me search for a ritual monster, and that's how I get the Herald of Ultimateness. But then because it's level 6, because it gained 4 levels from sending Arclight, I can Xyz summon Beatrice, and then that lets me send an Ava to my graveyard on both my turn and my opponent's turn, and that searches for 2 level 2 fairies, and that's how I have the fairies in my hand to discard to Ultimateness to defeat my opponent. That's turn 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh!
I'm now understanding why the Yu-Gi-Oh! TV series is just like the character saying what they do, and that's a meme.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense now.
Do you know a house rule set that makes Yu-Gi-Oh cards actually
Oh
bound?
god, I did
All right,
that again.
here's what you do. Ready? You start playing Yu-Gi-Oh. You draw your 5-card opening hand. You get a brick and you put it on top of your deck. You don't remove the brick until it's your draw step. Then you're allowed to remove the brick, draw 1 card, put the brick back. And that's how you make Yu-Gi-Oh balanced.
That would also probably balance like the Spire successfully. Oh, I wanted to ask you, like, how much has gaming been a part of... What is the way to phrase this? A lot of people separate gaming into, like, their social time, their hobby sort of time. But some people make gaming part of, like, a career as well, like working on games or doing QA work. You sound like you'd be a good QA tester with what you're doing at Baldur's Gate 3. Or game design, you mentioned you'd made a couple of games. So I was wondering if you had found success in trying to make games a part of your life in that way as well. Or if you wanted to.
Yeah, I've never pursued that. I went into game design just to try it out as a hobby, just to see if I could, and to learn, and I did. I learned a lot. And I think I could do a good job doing QA testing, but one, I've only ever QA tested finished games, which is very different than what a QA testing job is, where you're QA testing unfinished games. So the QA testing that actual QA testers do would be very different from what I'm used to. And the skills are probably transferable, but...
I feel like you'd do good at it.
I think I could do a good job. The other thing, I've heard only bad things about, like, working conditions and just the job in general.
That's true.
Which, you know... There's only so many good jobs in the world, unfortunately. So, like, bad conditions maybe shouldn't be a deterrent, just on principle. But, like, I've never looked into it.
Okay.
By the way, while you were gone, I asked chat for questions, and I think I said that I like green tea. And then someone asked what a typical Yu-Gi-Oh! Turn 1 is, and then I spent the entire time gone. I almost made it through the whole turn. I didn't get to any of the Link summons. I was supposed to do a few Link summons there, because I have all these extra Drytrons lying around.
You can keep going if you want. I am kind of enjoying it. It's kind of like listening to a podcast. Like, I don't know what any of the words mean, but it's just kind of soothing.
Okay, let me go from the top.
Okay.
Okay. My opening hand is 2 cards. Want to point that out. I have 5 cards open hand. I only need 2 of them for my opening hand. Okay. Activate the ability of Drytron Alpha, tributing the Drytron Zeta in my hand. That special summons the Drytron Alpha and lets me search for Ritual Monster. I'm going to get Cyber Angel Benton. Then all the Drytrons can activate from the graveyard. So I'm going to activate the Zeta from the graveyard, tributing the Cyber Angel Benton. That puts Zeta into play. Zeta lets me search for a ritual spell. I get, of course, Drytron Meteosis.
Obviously.
Yeah. I mean, and then when Cyber Angel Benton is tributed, I get to search for a Light Fairy. I'm going to get another Cyber Angel Benton. So I have these 2 Drytrons in play. I'm going to do an Xyz summon, which is if you have 2 monsters of the same level and all my Drytrons are level 1, you can do an Xyz summon where I get a rank 1 Xyz monster put into play with these 2 monsters under it as material. This is Drytron Mu Beta. By the way, there's an extra deck. Have a 15-card extra deck, which are your monsters, like your fusion monsters, that are things that you can access through special means during the game. And that's for all your like extra deck summons. So they have your Link monsters, your Synchro monsters, your Xyz monsters, your fusion monsters. Yeah, just those 4. I don't think I forgot. Yeah, just those 4. That's where all those are from. That's the other quirk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that all of your like finishers are in that extra deck. You don't need to draw them ever, so your whole deck is just.
Is that something you have to register for the tournament, or is everybody? It's like extra cards that are available to everybody all the time.
No, you 15. It's part of your deck list, so you pick 15.
Oh, it's like
cards.
sideboard and Magic the Gathering kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like. It's 15 boss monsters that you can go get, basically. Anyways, we've just Xyz summoned. When Mu Beta's Xyz summon, I can get a Drytron from my library, put it in, so my deck, put it in my discard pile. Not library, graveyard, deck, discard pile. And I'm gonna, of course, get Drytron Gamma.
Of course.
Now I'm going to use that Meteosis to ritual summon the Cyber Angel Benton in my graveyard, using one of the materials from the Mu Beta as for the tribute. That's a special ability Mu Beta has. You can use his materials as tribute.
Is it considered impolite for your opponent to leave?
So, yes. Okay. Also, you cannot bluff in Yu-Gi-Oh! You cannot pretend to have a card that you do not have.
Like it's illegal, or?
It is against the rules. It's against the tournament rules.
What about the trap cards? Aren't those, like, required to be secret?
Well, the thing is, I'm going off here. And if every single step I have to, like, ask my opponent for permission, it's going to take a lot longer. So, if they have the Ash Blossom to stop me from searching my library, you know, they can make me ask permission. But if they don't have it, they just have to put their hand down, say no hand traps, go for it.
Okay. I actually had an experience playing Magic the Gathering that justifies that rule for me.
Mm-hmm.
I once missed lunch break because my Arms Chant opponent wouldn't tell me that they didn't have Arms Chant in hand with 1 white mana, and I was playing a Storm deck. So I just had to go off with extra stuff floating to play around Arms Chant and ask them if they wanted to chant every time I played a card. It was very miserable for both of us.
There's a pretty famous story where during a feature match, Brian Kibler was playing against a Storm player, and Storm player was going off, and Brian Kibler wrote F6 on a piece of paper, which is the Magic Online hotkey to auto pass priority.
Yep.
Set it down on the board under the feature match camera and walked away.
Good for
Very
Brian.
stylish. But I've ritual summoned my Benton. She's just in play. We'll get back to her. Now, I'm going to get that Drytron Gamma out of my discard pile, summon it using the Benton in my hand as material, and when Gamma comes into play, it can get another Drytron from my discard pile, luckily. I have that one I used to summon Benton, so now I have 2 Drytrons in play. The Benton, this one's going to search for Diviner of the Herald. Normal summon her. It's my 1 normal summon for the turn. When she comes into play, I can put any fairy from my extra deck into my graveyard. I'm going to send Herald of Arclight. That's a level 4 Synchro monster, so she's going to gain 4 levels, becoming level 6. And then when Herald of Arclight is sent to the graveyard, I get to search for a ritual spell or ritual monster. I'm going to get Diviner of the Herald. Not Diviner of the Herald, Herald of Ultimateness. That's my boss monster. Now, I'm going to Exceed summon Beatrice using that level 6 Diviner of the Herald and that Cyber Angel Benton, who you know is level 6. Put her into play in defense mode because I don't want my opponent to Lightning Storm her. Then I'm going to use her ability to send an Ava from my library into my graveyard. That lets me remove 2 light fairies from my from a discard pile to banish them, send them to the banish zone. And then I'm going to do that. Let's do the Cyber Angel Benton and the Diviner of the Herald. We had to send it to use this ability. And that I search for 2 white fairies, I'll get another Diviner of the Herald, and I'll get a Herald of Orange Light. It doesn't. These ones are just going to sit in my hand. Now, I'm going to use the ability of Drytron Meteosis to reduce the attack points of one of my in-play Drytrons by 1,000 to return it from my discard pile to my hand. Wait, I did it slightly wrong. Wait, no, I didn't.
Are you allowed takebacks, or is it my turn now?
You're not allowed takebacks. Also,
so it's my turn now.
It's not your turn. I'm gonna keep playing.
Oh.
But under an old line, sorry, I was thinking that I shouldn't have sent Ava with the Beatrice. I should have sent Delta, Drytron Delta with the Beatrice, but Union Carrier is banned, so I can't go into Union Carrier anymore. They banned Union Carrier, so I guess I have to do Ava. So no Drytron Delta.
Shame on Konami.
So
Unions
continue.
Start to
so
do well
continue
and boom,
as
bam.
we were. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna ritual summon our Herald of Ultimateness. Put it in defense mode. We're gonna use that other material on the Muveda to do the ritual summon. Then we're going to do a link summon to get IP Masquerena using any of our 2 Drytrons in play. IP Masquerena lets us do a link summon on our opponent's turn. So that's just another option we have going into our opponent's turn. Now
Wait,
we're ready to...
Our opponent's getting a turn?
Yeah, well, now we're ready to end the turn. On our opponent's standby phase, we can only use Beatrice's ability once a turn. We're going to use it again now. Send our other Ava to our discard pile. Search for 2 more fairies. So now we have Herald of Ultimateness in play, which lets us discard a fairy to negate any effects of one of my opponent's cards and destroy that card. We have 4 fairies in our hand to do that with. And we also have IP Masquerena in play, which lets us do a link summon, which is basically just going to let us destroy any one of our opponent's cards. It's effectively what the link summon is going to do for us. So now our opponent has 5 cards they get to draw for the turn. They have 6 cards in their hand. We can negate 4 of them and destroy a 5th one. So we are very likely to win from this spot.
Although, now it's my turn.
It's true. And if I do prevent you from contributing meaningfully to the board...
How do you prevent me from doing things?
Because I can negate and destroy 4 of your cards, then destroy a 5th.
Okay.
Using my Herald of Ultimateness.
I play Miracle.
Okay.
And then I play Scroll Plus.
I think I negate the Scroll Plus.
I play Scroll Plus.
I negate the Scroll Plus.
I play Scroll Plus.
I negate the scroll plus.
I play Scroll Plus.
I negate the scroll plus.
And I play Scroll Plus.
Dang, you got me.
All right, I have 10 cards in hand. I play Rushdown Plus. Rushdown Plus. And I play Inner Peace and Tantrum. But I have to play them whatever 8,000 divided by 6 is times each. So I mean, you can concede, or you can watch me play it out.
Dude, Chad is pointing out, in Yu-Gi-Oh! You're only allowed to play 3 copies of a single card.
Tricky.
Yeah. Then if it gets back to our turn, then we can get our Drytrons back from our graveyard, because they can activate once per turn. We just put them into play the graveyard. They have 2,000 attack each. And then, we can just link summon like a Nightmare Unicorn or an Access Code Talker or something.
That would be a good Act 5, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck. If you beat the heart in Act 5, you play against a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck.
Yeah, so like, there is a turn 2, because the first player can't attack. So there's usually a turn 2, well, it'll be a turn 3, because your opponent's first turn is turn 2. Everyone gets one turn, and then the outcome of the game is decided. Although usually the game doesn't end immediately. Usually a turn 3 if the first player wins. Though, if the second player is going to win, they'll usually just win immediately because they get to attack. There are things that do win on the first turn where your opponent doesn't get a turn at all, but those are kind of rare and inconsistent. Konami doesn't like those.
I'm glad that Konami has somewhere where they really, set the bar in terms of game balance.
They don't want you drawing cards.
Yep.
They want your opponent to get one turn.
Yeah, these are good standards, I think, to have. If Mega Kurt had balanced Watcher that way, the game would be very different.
Are you familiar with the Pokemon TCG?
I played a lot of that Game Boy Color version of it, where you walked around and beat people and got a booster pack. It was like Chandelar for the Pokemon TCG, but I've never actually played it at a tournament or whatever.
Pokemon TCG has its own quirks, where they're the card. I don't remember the name. There's been many versions of this card, but imagine a card. It's a supporter. You can only play one supporter per turn. One of the supporters says, draw 3 cards. No downside, but you can only play one supporter per turn.
Draw 3 cards?
Just draw 3 cards. I think you have a 5-card opening hand. A Professor Elm. Yeah, I think Professor Elm does. I don't remember if you have a 5-card opening hand in Pokemon or not. But that card, draw 3 cards, unplayable. Garbage. Completely unusable.
Feels bad.
Huh. Because you can just draw way more cards.
Well, there's Professor Oak and Bill. Those are the ones I remember.
Yeah, Professor Oak and Bill were before supporters were a thing. They were just trainers. There's no limit to how many trainers you can play.
Oh.
Which is why Bill was infamous for just being pot of greed to just draw 2 cards.
Yep.
Yeah, there's Professor Juniper. 7-card opening hand, right? Professor Juniper is the one where I was playing, which was just discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Which we love that effect.
That's what Professor Oak was. I thought it was okay.
Yeah, that one's okay. That's good. Because in Pokemon, you can put a one-of in your deck, and you usually can't search for your one-of Bikini to counter your opponent's Klinklang. But you can expect to draw it every game, because you draw so many cards.
Does Pokemon not have decking?
It does, but I think you shuffle in fairly commonly.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't come up a lot. But the thing that makes Pokemon special is prize cards. You draw your opening hand. If you have no basic Pokemon in your opening hand, you can show your hand to your opponent to say, haha, there are no basic Pokemon. And then you get a new hand, and then your opponent may draw a card for each time you have mulligans this way. That may is a thing. Back in the day, it was a mandatory, and there was a deck called Mulligan Mewtwo, where you played one Mewtwo and like 59 psychic energy, and you would just mulligan over and over and over again because you keep showing them a hand of 7 psychic energy and make them draw most of their deck. And then when you do get the Mewtwo, it has an ability where you can discard a psychic energy from it and then it can't take damage for a turn. Barrier. So it was unkillable. You would just stall your opponent out.
Did they perhaps change the rules so that strategy didn't work anymore? Because it sounds very bad for the game.
Yeah, that's why your opponent now your opponent may draw a card.
Does the Pokemon still exist?
It does, but it's bad now.
Okay.
It's been power crept.
Being invincible forever is just no longer good enough.
Yeah. The issue with it is you needed 2 psychic energy to use that ability, and then you had to discard a psychic energy from it, but you could play a new one. You had 59 in your deck. And at the time, nothing could kill it on the first turn, because no one had an attack for 1 injury that could do it. That is no longer the case. So now your Mewtwo would just get dunked on immediately. Because ability to attack on the first turn is much stronger. But you have prize cards in Pokemon, where you draw your opening hand. Once you keep it, you put the top 6 cards of your deck face down off to the side. And whenever you defeat one of your opponent's Pokemon, you draw one of your prize cards. It's in your hand now. And you win when all your prize cards are gone. And they have Pokemon EX, which are like double Pokemon, and they're very powerful. They're like the legendaries, but your opponent gets 2 prize cards when they defeat them. But
is there something that interacts with prize cards? Like
there is
you
actually.
just mentioned that, yeah.
The coolest card in any card game is the Pokemon card N. It's the letter N. It's person. It's one of your supporters. And it has both players shuffle their hand into their deck and draw cards equal to their prize cards. So at the start of the game, you're both shuffling in and drawing 6 cards. But if you're getting beaten up, and your opponent only has 1 or 2 prizes left, and now that's putting them on a 1 or 2. Now that's putting them on a 2-card hand, and you're still going up to 6.
It's like a catch-up mechanic.
Yeah, because the mechanic inherently sort of a win more thing. You draw cards for doing the good thing. But they made this card to instead make a catch-up mechanic out of it. Ash catch-up mechanic.
Why have I chosen to fight the slavers, Tiffany?
That's a good question. I'm not the best at Slay the Spire, but I always avoid every Act 2 elite. I don't like to fight elites in Act 2. I think it's hard. That's my
I'm against
personal
slavery.
strategy.
That's a good point. Floating
Pokemon
Act 2
decks.
Elites is not a terrible idea.
A Pokemon deck, you have a star Pokemon, that's your favorite Pokemon, and your whole deck is built to get that Pokemon out, and then suited up, ready to go. And then you can usually get that done on the first turn. And then, because of how prize cards work, you still need to defeat a bunch of your opponent's Pokemon. So once you've done the thing, the game continues happening for at least, like, 3 more turns. And there's a lot of mechanics to catch up, like damage on Pokemon persisting, and cool trainer cards to interact with your opponent's Pokemon, like you can sleep bomb it and put it to sleep, or you can use Catcher, which switches out your opponent's active Pokemon for a benched Pokemon. There's a lot of like interaction you can do. So
Do you
it's kind
have
of
to have
like,
a favorite Pokemon, or are there decks that are not built around one Pokemon in particular?
there are decks that aren't built around one Pokemon in particular, but like generally the most effective thing is to like have an attacker and then you play a bunch of other Pokemon, mainly to have counterplay because the game continues after you've set up, and your opponent will be able to search for all of their little like one-of cards. They will be able to draw into them, and so they will be able to find the thing that beats what you're doing. So you need to have counterplay, which means setting up a second Pokemon or having a counter for a counter. Like, I played a Rayquaza deck for a little while. And there were 2 Pokemon that were immune to Rayquaza's shenanigans. But I also played a Victini. Victini is my favorite Pokemon. And Victini can defeat those 2 counter Pokemon. So it was a Rayquaza deck, but it was Rayquaza supported by my pal Victini, the Victory Pokemon. If your opponent doesn't have any Pokemon in play, they lose. That's the other win condition. So you either need to collect all your prizes or defeat all their Pokemon. What's your favorite Pokemon?
My favorite Pokemon?
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I used to start with. I'm a 152 Pokemon truther. I don't believe that the other ones are real.
52?
Yeah, there was Missing No. A lot of people don't remember Missing No, or for some reason dismiss it, but...
Dismiss it for technically not being a Pokemon.
It was a Pokemon.
It was an error that takes the place of a Pokemon.
Wow,
that is all about Missing No.
That is a harsh thing to say to
I mean,
a very important Pokemon.
I mean, I'm familiar with Pokemon speedrunning, especially the first generation. I know all about Missing No. I also love Missing No. I commissioned a Missing No Perler and gifted it to a friend because he got the Pokemon Red World record.
Oh, nice. How is that speedrun? I think I've watched a bit of it. It's like excruciatingly large amounts of resets, right? Or is this with enough glitches that isn't as big a deal?
Yeah, there's 3 categories of it that are important, and then there's some fun extra categories, like the gotta catch 'em all reverse boss order, things like that. There's the any %, which is fake, where you start the game.
It's fake. What does that mean?
I mean, a lot of any % categories are fake.
Okay.
You start the game, you save, and then you turn off your Game Boy at the correct time to corrupt your save. And then you have an underflowed Pokemon menu and use it to load the end of the game. And then you're done.
Sounds legit to me. Nothing to see here.
The in-game time is 0:00 when you do that. Then there's the no save corruption, which is the real glitched category, then you need to encounter Missing No in order to get your Pokemon menu to underflow, and then you go to the end of the game.
And yet you told me Missing No wasn't a real Pokemon. Just calling it as I see it.
Okay. And, you know, what is a Pokemon if not something that fills the role of a Pokemon?
I'm
But
glad
that
we
one,
agree.
like, yeah, that one's like 15-ish minutes. And then there's Glitchless, which is glitchless. That's the
brutal
super
one,
serious
yeah?
playing it. Now, there has been, in recent years, some great advancements in RNG manipulation.
Sure.
Where you can, you know, turn off the Game Boy the regular way, and then walk a certain steps, and then on the right frame, step into a piece of grass, and then you get a really nice Nidoran. You catch it. And two great things have come from that good RNG manipulation. Is one, a lot of the early game resetting, where you just have to get a usable Pokemon, is out because you can always get a good Nidoran. The other thing is that finally, after years playing, they started timing the Pokemon games in real time instead of in-game time. Because they were using the in-game time for the longest time, which was all Worcester's fault. And so you had things like 4-way ties for an in-game time of 1 hour and 51 minutes, because the in-game time rounded down to the next minute. You'd have all these big ties. Now you have seconds and milliseconds, and we don't have all these like 10-way ties anymore. That is the RNG in Pokemon. And there's still a lot you need things to go well. And Pokemon Red especially, the way to go fast is if your Pokemon is at very low health, the ding 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 ding.
Oh yeah, it speeds up the fights, right?
Yeah, and then all the Pokemon don't do their little cries when they come out.
Yeah.
Things are faster, so you have to do the entire game at low health with the ding 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 ding. And it's much faster, and but very dangerous, because if your Pokemon gets hit by anything, you lose.
Yep.
And then all of the strategies are for how to one-shot your opponent's Pokemon, which is how like competitive Pokemon works, the video game. Which I have done a lot of that too. That's also a card game. It's a love competitive Pokemon.
Say that again, I got confused. Competitive Pokemon is also a video game?
I called it a card game,
okay.
Like metaphorically. It checks all the right boxes for a card game. Like how Mahjong's a card game, even though it doesn't have cards.
Sure. It's like the Spire is a card game, even though it doesn't have cards.
Yeah. So the competitive Pokemon, which is strategically incredibly deep. You know, Pokemon's very popular, and what people know about Pokemon is like the type chart. And then people like will make a game like Pokemon, and then they have 3 types: fire, water, and grass, and like, look at my Pokemon game, don't you love Fire Emblem? But actual Pokemon, even just for the type chart, is much deeper, because you have the double types, and you have your fire Pokemon can learn water moves, or usually not water moves, they can learn ice moves and stuff. And so even just playing with just the types, you have a lot more to it, but then all the Pokemon have stats, and they have different abilities, and they have all these different moves, and you get 6 of them, and you can switch between your Pokemon. And in competitive Pokemon, there's a move called Stealth Rocks, which does just a little bit of damage to a Pokemon every time they switch in. And anytime your opponent switches Pokemon, their new Pokemon takes a little bit of damage. And Stealth Rocks is the most important, the most powerful move in all of competitive Pokemon, and it would be completely useless in like the single player game. You just switch Pokemon a lot. Because, you know, if like your opponent is about to do a big water attack and you have your fire type out,
doesn't
like,
switch Pokemon cost you your entire turn though?
It does cost you your entire turn,
You just
but
still have
like,
to do it.
you still have to do it, right? Because like,
Do you
they're
ever
just gonna kill your
find
Pokemon.
like threefold repetitions in Pokemon where people just have to switch Pokemon every turn and otherwise they will lose, and so you just draw, like in chess?
That doesn't really come up in Pokemon because your pieces have hit points in Pokemon, which they don't in chess.
Gotcha. Somebody just asked if we are past turn 1 of the Yu-Gi-Oh game yet, or if we're still in it.
We are past Yu-Gi-Oh now.
Okay. I think that's good to reestablish.
Yeah. I mean, I can link my YouTube channel, which is just a bunch of turn 1s of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Excuse me?
Let me find that. I have it, my YouTube channel, marked as for kids, because I didn't know what that meant. Because I uploaded my first YouTube video, and I was like, is this appropriate for children? Was the question asked. Like, yeah, it's Yu-Gi-Oh! And then, like, all my comments are disabled, and, like, I think, like, moderators need to watch my, like, 30-second Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos in order for them to get uploaded now or something. It was definitely a mistake.
Mm-hmm. I do have to... I need a little bit of a break between guests, and I have another guest on in 15 minutes, so I do have to wind this up.
Okay.
This has been really fun. I really want to go watch Pokemon Red speedrunning now. That is what this has done to me. I had forgotten. I really enjoyed watching Pokemon speedrunning for a while. I think during the pandemic, there was like a month in there where it was my thing. I'm not much of a speedrunner, but I do enjoy watching speedruns. They're just cool, right? It is cool to see someone who is very, very good at something do that thing.
Yeah. And consider becoming one of those people who's really good at it. It's surprisingly easy to become the best at some video game.
I have spent long enough trying to zero death farewell in Celeste to not think that that's true. Yeah, I mean, Celeste is probably the wrong game to pick to try to become like a known speedrunner, because that is such a speedrunning game. I have played Celeste and tried to go fast in my life, and it is a ton of fun.
I put my YouTube channel in chat. I'll post it in the Discord as well. Those are the really interesting lines, and you people in chat will definitely be able to understand the nuance of why those lines are interesting.
Obviously. It's Machine Omega and Agent Beef Cakes, right?
So there was definitely Hungry Burger.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And then the Drytrons.
Yes, Drytron Alpha
They use
and
Drytrons
Omega
to summon
and
Herald of
Gamma.
Ultimateness.
Yep, obviously, Herald of Ultimateness.
Yeah, exactly, you get it.
Has anyone ever gone to a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and just kind of tried to wing it? Like, just said that they were playing cards and hoped no one would call them on it?
Not that I am aware of. Like, what do you mean, like...
Just being like, I summon Joe DiMaggio and Jerry Rice.
I mean, you do need to have the cards at a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament.
I use Warren Buffett to invent the photon. I just feel
So
like you
could
could get
go
away with
to a
it.
Yu-Gi-Oh tournament and then like have a conversation with people, like people are talking about the match that just said. It was like, oh yeah, like I have Warren Buffett in my side deck for that situation.
Just
That
to see
might
if
work.
anyone called you on it. This is my new hobby.
What I've learned from playing so many card games is it's really easy to accidentally memorize the name of every card in your card game. Like, I never intended to, but I have seen with my real life eyes 99% of Magic cards at this point.
With your real life eyes.
My real life eyes.
99%. There are so many.
Yeah. Well, of the different copies, not every individual Magic card.
Sure. Guess I didn't think that was what you meant. There are so many of them.
There are, and I've seen all of them.
Wow.
It just happens.
Yeah. Ow.
You just play a long time, and then people keep casting them, and then sometimes you do booster drafts, and sometimes, you know, look through someone's trade binder, and they have like a Hungry Hippo in there. I'm like, wow, I remember Hungry Hippo. Ice Age was ages ago. There isn't a Hungry Hippo.
I didn't think there was
It's
a
probably a
Hungry
Yu-Gi-Oh
Hippo.
card that is though.
Well, yes, there's an entire Greek alphabet of hungry hippos in Yu-Gi-Oh! Alright, alright, sorry. Estrab has pointed out that I said that we have to wrap this up.
Yes.
I should stop.
Thanks for having me on.
Of course! It's been great. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
your passion with us. That was lovely. That was invigorating.
Thank you.
Have a
Goodbye.
good rest of your day.
Goodbye, Jorbs. Goodbye, chat.
And I think people know where to find you.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah. Next time. Alright, chat. So I have been told that self-accountability is important. And so I meant to hold myself accountable for, like, taking a break now, in theory. Shall I do that? I don't really want to do that, is the thing. I could just keep playing instead. Just kind of seems more fun. Next up, we're talking about Marvel Snap, which is exciting. I have a bunch of friends who got really into Marvel Snap, but I personally don't know that much about it, so... Take a break after the heart? Well, I only have 8 minutes. I don't think I'm going to get there. You also are into Marvel Snap? I believe it. Makes sense. Marvel Snap has been a really big card game for people for a bit.